Welcome to Tritiyo Matra. In Arabic terms, 𝗙cie stands for disaster or catastrophe. It is also the term utilized by Palestinians to refer to the tragic destruction of Palestinian society and the permanent displacement of a majority of Palestinian Arabs in 1948. It is also used to describe the ongoing Israeli occupation of Palestine. For the first time on the 75th anniversary of the 𝗙cie this year, UN committee officially commemorated the event. The ambassador of Palestine to Bangladesh, Mr. Yousef Ramadan, is joining us today to discuss this momentous occasion as well as the situation of the Middle East in general. Ambassador, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Would you share with our audience the significance of this recognition of the 𝗙cie and tell how this tragic chapter of history finally got the recognition it deserves at the UN?
Well, good evening to you, to your viewers. Assalamu alaikum. 𝗙cie is the most disaster thing that ever happened to any nation in the history of mankind that I remember. Palestinian people were living peacefully for thousands of years, over 5,000 years in this land, in Palestine. We named it after us, Palestine. It is recognized and mentioned in the Old Testament, the Torah. 289 times Palestine mentioned by name, Palestinian people mentioned by name in their own book. And yet they have inflicted on us the same thing what the German Nazi did to them 3 years or 4 years or 5 years before that thing. So it is really surprising that the same nation, the same people who witness and try to go through this Holocaust, the same people or their children, they have done same thing to us, to other nation. We as a Palestinian always believed that justice will always prevail. It might take sometimes, but finally it should and it will prevail. That's what God and the history taught us. Palestine was, from the dawn of the history, several empires occupied Palestine and remained there for 200-300 years, starting from the Greek, and after the Greek came the Roman Empire, then Byzantine, then again the Muslim took over, Umar ibn al-Khattab, and then after that the Mamalik, and then before that the Crusaders, and after that the Ottoman, and so on, then the British, and now the Israeli. This land have a significant for the West and for the East. It's a blessed land in all three religion. In the Christianity, Muslim, Jesus was born there. For the Jews, Dawood was there, alayhi salam, and Ishaq was there, Yaqub was there, and all. Although we believe they are Muslim, not Jewish, because they were before Judaism even exist. And for Muslim, it is the second holiest place for the Muslim people, Al-Aqsa Mosque, where the people used to pray toward that. And this is the place where the Prophet Muhammad descended to the heaven from Jerusalem, Al-Buraq, whereas we consider it. And so it is a significant place for all of us. But what is more significant that, why does those same people, the Palestinian people, the only people on this earth, has to pay such a price which keep us for 75 years refugees? Look, for example, I was born a refugee, lived my life as a refugee, and I might die as a refugee. This is the worst thing you can ever think of when a person have no homeland. This is the most difficult. You can live without children, you can live single without wife, You can live without parents as an orphan. You can do all that, but you cannot live without a homeland. That is the most difficult thing, and no one can understand it unless if you try it, because it's really suffering for us.
Right.
And why for us? Why the suffering comes to us? God knows.
Mr. Ambassador, the plight of the Palestinian people has recently come to the limelight due to several recent events. One such event was the release of the historical drama film, 𝗙𝗲𝗹𝗶, which was received with critical acclaim, explored the story of the Nakba from a ground level perspective. You wrote an article in the Daily Star recommending people to watch the movie to get a glimpse of the Palestinian truth. Do you believe the recent development at the event is in part related to the increasing public awareness of the ongoing tragedy in Palestine?
There is a few. I wanted to thank you that you follow up and you mentioned this 𝗙𝗲𝗹𝗶. Yes, it is true. When I watched the movie, I just remember what my father and mother used to tell us about Nakba. And that is seeing, I mean, hearing is different than seeing. Seeing is more interesting to see. It will be injected in your head and you can never forget it. Yes, recently, because Israeli government, the current Israeli government, has shown the entire world the true face of Zionism and the true face of the apartheid regime. From the establishment of Israel in 1948 till the late 19th century, last century, they covered their face in a way that they presented themselves, we are the only democracy in the Middle East. Those Arabs, they want to throw us in the sea, and what we do all is just we protect ourselves and defend ourselves. So we are the lamb here and they are the wolf. When Netanyahu came to power the first time, he showed different concept. So the people start understanding that it's not what the Israel tell before, it's not true, it's not reality, it was a fake. Now this government came to power,
The current regime.
The current government, especially with the two minister of finance and the minister of the national security, who today dash into the mosque of 𝗙𝗪𝗪 today, just a few hours ago, clearly saying what they used to do. They used to do, but they never said. They never admit. Today, no, they are admitting that. They saying to the level that Palestinian people must not exist. They have to be vanished. We kill them, we burn them, we throw them in the sea, but they should not exist. That's clearly they're saying. And the irony is the worst is that this guy, 𝗙𝗿, he went to France and said it in France, in Paris, in front of so many people. And yet nothing happened. He was supposed to be arrested. He was supposed. If a Palestinian would say the same thing about the Israeli anywhere in the world, he will be condemned. But why the Israeli minister, he goes and say whatever he wanted to say against other nation, and he's allowed to speak freely without anyone to care. But the good thing what happened was, one of the things that on the 50th anniversary of the EU, there was supposed to be the embassy or the delegation, the mission in Tel Aviv was hosting a dinner.
You are talking about EU mission?
Yes, the EU in Tel Aviv, in Israel. Were hosting a dinner and a party to celebrate the 50th anniversary. And then Netanyahu decided to send 𝗙𝗿 to be the chief guest, the minister of state, the one who called for the destruction of the Palestinian. And what the ambassador did, he was a German by the way, he canceled the meeting. He canceled the whole event in order to protest this. So these are the things we really welcome. And that's what's supposed to happen actually. You see, if the world stands for really humanity, what's good for humanity, Israel will not be so much encouraged to do what they do today in killing, destroying houses, building settlements, turning their back into the international law. They don't care about any noises, about any cry, about anyone. So the world has to stand together and say no to evil and yes to just. Now, we're not living in such a perfect world. We don't expect that to happen fast. But the Israeli government, the current government, are making it very fast to happen.
The recent death of 𝗙cie Adnan, a senior figure from Islamic Jihad, while he was awaiting trial in Israel, sparked widespread outrage and exacerbated hostilities between Palestine and Israel. The Prime Minister of Palestine described his death as a deliberate assassination. What are your thoughts on this matter?
Yes, it was a deliberate. This is not, he wasn't the first one. He was not the first one, and he will not be the last one. See, anyone inside the jail, Israeli jail, he make a noise and publish it, the public opinion start to listen to them, they will assassinate him in any way. That is their policy. The problem is we are not treated properly as a human being. That's number one issue which the world should understand, and I think most of the people who goes to Palestine, he can see that, he can witness that. We are not treated as a human being at all. And if we are treating as like 6th or 7th class citizen in the country. There is so many things we are not allowed to do. So many things. A lot of, like the last program, the last time I was here, I told you, I am the Palestine ambassador. I cannot go to Palestine. Can you imagine that all my colleagues, most of my colleagues, the ambassador of other country, can go to my country and I cannot go? I mean, this is it's absurd, right? It is not, nobody can accept it, or nobody can imagine it, actually. It's really difficult for me. It's extremely difficult. My children, they want to go and see their country. They cannot go.
But they can't.
They cannot go.
𝗙cie Adnan was conducting a hunger strike against the process of the controversial system of administrative detention employed by Israel to detain any person suspected of a crime indefinitely without charge. What are your thoughts on Israel's method of administrative detention?
The Israeli, they have, every time they elevate the law related to the Palestinian, the activist Palestinian, the active Palestinian. Like, for example, can you imagine a country who call itself a democratic state has children in prison? Children, I mean 6 years, 8 years, 12 years old in prison, inside Israeli prison, because they throw stones on the Israeli soldier. This never happened in the history of mankind. It will never happen in the future. So the kind of law that Israeli put on the Palestinian, nobody can imagine it. It's extremely difficult. And that has a reason. It's not without reason. The reason for that, they want as much Palestinian as possible to get out of the country so they can take their land. That is the main aim, because they want a clean country, a country with nobody in it. But the thing is that, fortunately, the Palestinians produce a lot of children. When we left Palestine in 1948, we were 831,000 people, the people outside Palestine. Now we're 7 million people. The people who were inside Palestine at that time, the remaining part of the people, they were less than 500,000 people. And today, they're crossed 6 million people, or 6.5 million people. So this is something doesn't make the Israeli happy at all. For us, even working is very difficult. To work is very difficult. To obtain, I mean, the basic need of your family. And that pressure for us, in order to make life so difficult, so we have nothing but to leave the country. And that's what exactly they want. You know, more geography, less demography.
Mr. Yousef Ramadan, the demolition of Palestinian property is a method Israel has used in the Israeli occupied territories since they came under its control in the 6-day war to achieve various aims. The Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions estimated that Israel had raised 55,048 Palestinian structures as of 2022. Israel often conducts punitive house demolitions, which involve demolishing houses of Palestinians or neighbors and relatives of Palestinians suspected of violent acts against Israelis. Do you believe that this kind of action amounts to a form of war crime?
Well, according to most of the studies in the world, it is a war crime. It is. According to Geneva Convention, it is a war crime. Because we were supposed to be, when we are under occupation, according to the convention, we should be protected by the same people who chose to be our enemy and occupied us. It's supposed to be that. But nothing of the sort is happening. Demolishing houses, destroying olive trees, confiscating. Look, I'll give you an example. We have about 800 million cubic meter of water every year in the West Bank. Israel take all the water, 600 million, they take it from us and they sell it to us, and in a very high price. So our government has to pay subsidies, about 35 cents per each cubic meter. They take our water and then they sell it to us. And we're allowed to use 40 liters per person. 40 liters per person, including your whatever you grow, vegetable, and so take a shower, have a wudu and all this. For their side, the Israeli use 450 liters a day. Our water. I mean, you can see they take our water, they take our mineral resources, and they sell it, and they enjoy life. And yet, we are unable to pay our staff their salaries. For 2 years now, we pay 80% of the salaries for our staff. So this is a serious from this whole scenario, destroying houses, confiscating land. It's just to make life miserable for us. They just want us to get out. And what they see, Golda Meir once said, the Israeli Prime Minister, she said something. She said, the old people will die and the new generation will forget. Now, the Palestinian has proven the opposite. Actually, the new generation are more stubborn and they are more encouraged to fight and to struggle, and they are more rooted, deeply rooted in the land of Palestine. And nobody wants to leave. Nobody is going to leave. No matter what they do to us, we are staying. It's our land, it's our territory. This is our ancestor. We've been there for 5,000 years and we're going to be there until Qiyamah. This is a message for all of them and whoever support them. Palestinian will always be there.
Ambassador, as you were mentioning that Palestinians suffer through severe water shortages in the sharing summer, and there are numerous reports of hardships being faced by the people of Palestine regarding water and sanitation. According to Palestinian officials, Israel directly controls 85% of water resources in the West Bank and has a say in how the rest is distributed. How is the current water and sanitation condition in Palestine, and is the international community providing sufficient assistance in alleviating the issue?
Look, let's start from the end of your question. The international community, unfortunately, failed us so many times. Although the same community...
Did they try? Did they try, international community?
Well, they try, but I don't see that they have leverage.
Okay.
On the Israeli. They know their limit and they don't cross that limit. But with us, they cross the limit and they interfere in our internal affair. So they're not doing enough. The international community are not doing enough. The international community is the one who gave Israel legitimacy in 1947 by voting for the partition of Palestine, with the great help of the British, who gave the Balfour Declaration, actually, and they have to be tried for that. And they promised the Palestinian in 1930 that within 10 years' time, Palestinian state will be established. But instead, it was Israeli state was established, and the Palestinian people, instead, they had to leave their country forcibly. 16,000 people died between 1947 and 1949, 51 massacres committed by and as you have seen, Farha, the little boy, the mother who it's a true story, it's not just a fiction or imagination, it is a true story. So many people are like this. So many people. And at that time, we're talking about 16,000 out of 900,000 total population in that area, in the historical Palestine. 16,000 is a lot of people, unarmed people. Man, woman, children, including pregnant women, were killed. And that was, the same thing is repeating itself in a different phase today, the same thing. At that time, they used to come to the village, kill 5, 6, 10, 20 people in order just to encourage the rest or force the rest to leave the village. And they left. They succeed in that. But at that time, there was no camera. There was no media like today, no social media. So today they're doing the same thing exactly, but in a different phase, making life so difficult for us, so dangerous for us. So we'll do the same thing in 1948. Where that mistake was made in 1948, it will not be repeated again today.
So let's move to another issue. The effects of the Ukraine-Russia war are being felt all over the world. And is Palestine facing any particular issue due to the ongoing conflict in Europe?
Directly, no. Directly, no. But actually, it shows the opposite. There is, of course, we are not supporting this side or that side, because we don't support killing and wars. We are against it all the way, no matter where it happened, to the white or to the black, to the Muslim or to Christian or to Jews. We're against that. But what has shown the war in Ukraine, the hypocrisy of the Western country. That is the only benefit that we get, is the clear hypocrisy of the Western world. How they reacted toward Russia and how they're reacting toward Israel.
So, Ambassador, since the 1970s, several efforts have been made to find terms upon which peace can be agreed to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, such as the Oslo Accords and the Camp David Summit. What is the current state of such initiatives for peace from your perspective? And so what's about the two-state?
They are not willing even to sit on the table to discuss any issue.
Israelis?
Nothing, yeah. Israel, since almost 14, this is the 15 years, since Olmert left the government till today, there was no chance. They have not even accepted, with all the mediation of the American and the European and the Chinese and the Russian, they were not even able to hold one single meeting between the Palestinians. Israel always reject. Because in fact, clearly today Netanyahu said, very clearly, he said, although we have occupied Jerusalem or liberated Jerusalem in 1967, but there is a lot of work to be done, because many of my predecessors, the Prime Minister, they were willing to give it up to the Palestinian. But today it must be clear that this will remain always united, Jerusalem, as the eternal Jewish capital of Israel. So how can you sit with a man like this? And he rejects any kind of two-state solution scenario. Clearly he rejects that. So you sit with somebody who deny your right. So then why do you want to sit with him?
Mr. Ambassador, in January this year, Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina urged Muslim nations to stand for the Palestinian cause collectively. She made this request to the envoys of 7 𝗙cie member states. In your opinion, what role has Bangladesh played so far in supporting Palestine, and is there anything more Bangladesh can do to provide support?
Look, we respect all our brothers and friends in the whole world. And we know the limitation of every country. A country like Bangladesh, who are maybe about 5,000 kilometers away from Palestine, we don't expect a country like Bangladesh to send troops and go against, to fight on our behalf or to liberate our country. This is out of the question. Not because they don't want, because it's not possible. But what Bangladesh has done since the independent day until this moment, not even one single time Bangladesh has failed us in the international community or the international forum, United Nations or any other organization, not even once. And Bangladesh maintained a very strong and powerful relation with the Palestinian people. Today, we just received from the Bangladeshi army a huge quantity of material, which we received. It was in our TV today. And we have a student coming from Palestine to study in Bangladesh. We have maybe thousands of students who graduated already from this country. Doctors, engineers, pharmaceutical, officers, army officers. We have some general today who graduated from Bangladesh. So what Bangladesh is giving to the Palestinian is more than enough. Bangladesh has chose that we're going to stand with good against evil. We're going to stand against the oppressed, with the oppressed against the oppressor. And that's why Bangladesh refused to maintain any relation or diplomatic relation or trade relation with Israel. And that is the greatest support that we can ever dream of. And this is something I must always thank the people and the government of Bangladesh, that they still holding fast, standing fast against this kind of any kind of relationship with Israel. And that is very much appreciated by our leadership, by our people mainly, and most important, all of the people.
Mr. Ambassador, we were talking about military support. On 23rd May 2022, this year, a visiting Palestinian delegation paid a 𝗙𝗃 call to the Chief of Army Staff of the Bangladesh Army. The Director General of Palestinian Military Intelligence, Major General 𝗙𝗃𝗃𝗿𝗍 led the delegation. According to a press release, these talks opened a new door for advancing relations between the Palestinian Army and the Bangladesh Army. Can you hear a bit more about this development for me?
I am telling you that what Bangladesh Army are doing for the Palestinian are really more than enough. Not only that, we have also cooperation in security matters. We have instruction from our leadership that all our files are ready to be open before the Bangladeshi side. Because we are in the Middle East, we have a very good resources, extremely good resources, and all that resources is always open for the Bangladeshi side. So Bangladesh is doing great. And we try to do the same thing. I mean, we try to help in any way we can, but with our limited resources, unfortunately, we are unable. We would love to help Bangladesh a lot, because Bangladesh also having a crisis related to the Rohingya issue. We would like to help in any way that we can.
According to Palestinian officials, Israel and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad group in Gaza have agreed to a truce that has officially been in effect since 13th May, signaling an end to the worst episode of cross-border fire since a tender war in 2021. What are your thoughts regarding this recent ceasefire? Do you believe the violence we saw recently was the worst of it, or do you think it will just get worse in the future?
Look, peace will never be there in the Middle East. There will never, unless if we realize that the Palestinians will realize their rights of self-determination, independent and statehood. Always there will be a war, and it will be much more harder than the one it was. And look at the war which broke a week ago, 10 days ago. Israel sent its drone to Gaza and killed 3 of the jihad leaders. So they started the war. And when jihad, after 36 hours, they returned fire, then the Americans said Israel has the right to defend itself. Defend itself from whom? You are the one who started this. But then Israel, a country which has the Iron Dome and which had all the most sophisticated weapon in the world, you compare it with a 4,000 militia in jihad who have a homemade rocket which costs $100 each rocket. They make it at home, the rockets. And most of the rockets, 70% of the rocket is shot down in the sky. They shoot down before it reaches the target. And it's like fireworks. Compare it with the F-16, compare it with you have seen maybe in 2021 when they were able in one rocket to demolish the whole block. We all have seen that. We don't have this weapon to fight the Israeli, but at least we try to say that we are here, because you cannot keep quiet. You cannot get beaten and keep quiet, keep your head down or bow. I mean, that's not possible. As a human being who have a dignity, you have to fight back. Okay, you're fighting a giant, it's true, but at least you're causing little trouble for him, little scratch. That's all. And the war, I think, in the future, it will be much worse. And I see it close.
Mr. Ramadan, Egypt had a big role in mediating the most recent truce. China's foreign minister has also started that it is willing to broker peace talks between Palestine and Israel. What do you think of the role of foreign nations in finding a solution to this ancient conflict?
We have requested for an international conference related to this issue. Okay, the Chinese, they have an interest in the Middle East these days. Our relation with China is excellent. And they are investing a lot, especially their special relationship with the Gulf states, especially with the Saudi Arabia. So they wanted to be more involved in the international issue, and know
they're mediating the Saudis and
Iran, which is great, which is really extraordinary. I mean, we should appreciate that, because it is in the benefit of the Muslim world. It is in the benefit of the Muslim world. So we really appreciate the Chinese. But everybody runs after his interest. But what are we doing as a Muslim? We should do that. We should have initiated this between Iran and Saudi, right? But thanks to the Chinese, they did it.
The postponement of the long-due national elections in Palestine is not an encouraging sign of the state of democracy in Palestine. Do you believe that the democracy deficit in Palestine directly results from the Israel's occupation, and do you think that functioning democracy in Palestine can be a key factor in securing regional peace and stability?
Under occupation, as long as you're under occupation, everything, your freedom is limited. If you have democracy, or if you don't have democracy, you're limited. Because you can't even, when you get out of your home and you want to travel for around, let's say, 20 kilometers, you need at least 6 hours going and coming. Not because we have traffic jam. We don't have a traffic jam, because you have to go through many checkpoints, Israeli checkpoints. So democracy in general, it is very important, and it is needed. Of course it is needed. And democracy can play a very important role, at least in the psychological way to the people. They'll be more relaxed. And people have the right to speak up. People have the right to express themselves freely without anyone come in the night and knock your door and pick you up and throw you in jail. It is, of course, it is true. We have to admit it. But when we decided to make the general election, Israel said, not Jerusalem. How can we do it without our capital? If we ignore the people of Jerusalem, we ignore all Palestine. They don't want us to hold election. That's clearly, they don't want it, because if they want, we've done it before, it was okay. Why today is not? So this is, it is unfortunate. We need election. We really badly need election. Not only election we need that all the Palestinian people should come together again, should reunite again. Because the problem which happening between the two major factions, between Fatah and Hamas, is also, it's a horrible thing. It's not good at all. It's not good for us, not good for our reputation. It's too bad. I'm admitting this because it's a fact.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Ambassador, the status of the city of Jerusalem is one of the key flashpoints in the Palestine-Israel conflict. And during Ramadan this year, the violent clashes at the 𝗙𝗚cie mosque due to conflicting religious sentiments remind us that cultural and religious divides are perhaps the biggest barriers to peaceful coexistence in the Middle East. Do you believe that bringing peace in Jerusalem might be the first priority in bringing peace in the Middle East?
Look, I'll tell you, 𝗙𝗲𝗍. Palestine is 27,000 square kilometers, the historical Palestine. Israel occupied the Jewish, the Zionist gangs. They occupied at the beginning approximately 72%, and they established their homeland on it. And then they occupied the rest of the country. The two-state solution talk about what? 1976 border. 1976 border, that means only 22% of Palestine will be ours, and the 78% will be for them. And yet they want to take Jerusalem. That's unfair, number one. Number two, Jerusalem has historical and it has a religious taste for the Palestinian people. So not like Palestinians live in Jerusalem, Jerusalem live in every Palestinian heart. And no Palestinian you will ever find will accept any solution without Jerusalem. It's impossible. Jerusalem is the jewel of the crown. Without it, there's no meaning for the crown. Jerusalem is extremely important for us. It's ours, and it will always be ours. In 1929, there was a right from the Palestinian side against the British related to this issue. And then the British, they have formed a commission to discuss the issue related to is Jerusalem or the 𝗙𝗚cie mosque and the surrounding belong to the Muslim or to the Jews. And they have, this commission is formed, none of the members are Muslim or Arabs. They were all Europeans, all of them, under one of the Swedish state minister. And then after 1 year, they rule out that the city, the old city of Jerusalem, proven to be only for the Muslim and nothing for the Jews. And if the Muslim allow the Jews to come, it is just because they just wanted to show a respect to their religion, nothing more than that. It was ruled out by international court, international tribunal. So why should we give it up? Isn't it enough that we gave up 78% of our land, and yet they want to take the best part of our land, the remaining, from us? It's unfair and unacceptable. And if we, the Palestinians, accept that, you as a Muslim, you should reject that. I'm talking about all the 2 billion people, 2 billion. They should reject it, and we should be considered to be a traitor to the Muslim Ummah if we ever give up Jerusalem or 1 single square inch from Jerusalem. And that is final.
Thank you very much for your insight, Mr. Ambassador Yousef. Ramadan, the people of Bangladesh want to see a peaceful end to the conflict in the Middle East and will continue to support Palestine in this regard as they have done so far so many years. But thank you for joining us. Stay safe and take care of yourself.